Hey friends, it's really a good thing that Delta lost my bags with my cold weather gear. Well, they didn't lose my bag, they just never got it to me. And it's a good thing because it's only 21 degrees Fahrenheit, -6 Celsius here in South Korea. And I've got the lightest hoodie ever made on, but it's teaching me resilience. And so we're enjoying South Korea. Here we go. All right, folks, we are walking through, are we technically in Seoul right now,
We're
Pastor?
in Seoul.
In Seoul, and it is a chilly day, about 6 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yep.
So that's about, what, like -12 or thereabout Celsius?
Yeah, maybe closer to -15.
Yeah, something like that. Either way, it is cold. And we are walking to the bus stop as I drop my gloves here. And, because otherwise it's about a mile walk in the cold to the church. It's one of those few times Pastor said that wearing the mask is not such a bad idea because it keeps your face warm. And it's Sunday morning here in Seoul. Now, Pastor, you've been here in Korea for how many years?
It'll be 24 years next month.
24 years next month. And been the pastor of Yongsan Baptist Church for?
In March, it'll be 10 years.
March will be 10 years. Now, Yongsan Baptist Church was the church that my father, I was actually just talking to my mom just a few minutes ago. My dad was one of the very first converts of Yongsan Baptist Church. And my mom got grounded as a Christian in the church. And just amazing that here, so many years later, to be able to see what God's still doing through a ministry like this. And seeing people still get saved, still get baptized. And now the military presence in Seoul is a good bit less than it was in years past, correct?
Just in Seoul. Yeah.
Just in Seoul. And so the churches has adapted and is a much more international work now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Wait, is this a bus stop here?
It is.
Very cool.
I think we're gonna have to walk though, because
Okay.
we can about get there.
By the time the bus is going to arrive?
Yeah.
So if we're going to stand around, might as well walk, huh? Keep it warm.
It's actually the warmer option.
Okay, yeah. So those of you that are watching this by the feed from the GoPro, it's a we will survive. It's good at character building. What were you gonna say, Pastor?
Yes.
Across the, ooh. So there's lights in the ground, little green tiles tell you when you can walk. I think in America they'd probably still ignore those and go whenever. So is this a pretty normal Sunday morning as far as not a whole lot of people up and around? It's about 8:20 in the morning right now.
Yeah. It's a little calm on Sunday mornings. On weekdays, these streets would be pretty full of people.
What time does the normal Koreans' workday begin?
Well, I think it's pretty similar to America, but that's a school right there, and their schools start at 8:30.
Okay.
So, and most of these shops, even if they're not open yet, the employees are going to be coming. And
so would this be considered a business district, or is it all just intermingled in Seoul?
it's kind of all intermingled.
Okay.
You know, lots of apartments around here. Our apartment is 15 floors, but the last apartment we lived at was 30.
And for those just little things that are of interest to an American, being used to how rent and property ownership works here in especially Seoul, but really throughout Korea to a large degree, you have a concept called key money.
Right.
When you want to rent a property, essentially that's a deposit, normally much larger than we'd be used to in America, because normal American is first and last month's rent or something like that. So really you're talking, maybe $1,500 for a 2-bedroom apartment or something that you have to put down deposit. But here, I mean, your deposit can be $20,000, $30,000, $60,000, correct?
Yeah, well, actually it's quite a bit more than that. The
Okay.
full amount of key money is based on the value of the apartment. I think our apartment, which is pretty small, the key money is, I think around $180,000.
Wow.
But we were able to put down about 60.
Okay.
So if you put down the full key money amount, then you don't have to pay a monthly rent.
Okay.
Because they're gonna make their money off the interest.
So basically you can pay the full amount as if you're almost buying the property but that's just to hold the property for you to live in it for really a 2-year lease, and then you have the option normally to extend it another 2 years, but very unlikely you can go beyond that in most circumstances.
Right.
And so, what other? Let's say you did put that up for a 180. Are there any other fees? Do the utilities?
Yeah, you still have to pay all the utilities. You have to pay a building management fee, and your gas and electric, like that.
Right.
And also, you know, that when you move in, you have to pay a realtor fee.
Yes. Okay.
Which is going to be several $1,000s.
Wow. So that's one of the biggest cost of living differences, probably between the states. Things are, and obviously you're in a major metropolitan area. What did you say in the Seoul metro area? There's what, 18 million or something?
16 or 17
16
million.
or 17 million people. So he's walking down some side streets, and it's about a mile walk or so.
It's about a mile walk, yeah.
Whew. So the reason, maybe you'll see on the GoPro when I flip it around when we get to the church and do a quick tour of the church, the reason I'm wearing someone else's clothes is because throughout this trip, it seems I've been wearing someone else's clothes. My checked bag is sitting in Minneapolis. It has been for the last 2 weeks, which is, it's kind of useless to me there, but we will overcome, we will survive. And I did realize I didn't pack anything for my ears, so I guess it's not Delta's fault that my ears are a little tingly, but in a mile walk I shouldn't get too bad of a frostbite. But Seoul and South Korea as a whole pretty much has the normal 4 seasons that a lot of folks and you said pretty similar weather to like a Chicago.
Right.
It gets pretty cold in the winter, but how hot can it get Fahrenheit in the summer?
Pretty hot.
Pretty hot?
Probably hotter than Chicago.
Okay. Now, how close to a major body of water are we here? Is it basically the peninsula?
The West Sea, which is sometimes called the China Sea, in the Pacific, is about 20 or 25 miles to our west.
Okay.
So the Korean Peninsula, at least the South Korean portion of it, is about the size of the state of Illinois.
Yep.
And we're on the top northwest corner of that. We're about 40 miles from the DMZ.
Okay.
From North Korea. So well within artillery range.
Yes. I was asking yesterday, every man's perspective, the man on the street, Korean man on the street's perspective of North Korea and all of that. You said basically they're more concerned about political issues at home, almost yes. More than fear of what their northern neighbors are doing.
Most South Koreans don't really have any fear that North Korea is going to attack Seoul or South Korea, because they know that in a war, North Korea couldn't defeat South Korea alone.
Okay.
There's no chance.
Okay.
But certainly with the U.S. alliance, they have no possibility of winning. And if they attacked the Seoul metropolitan area, the response would be devastating.
Right.
That would end the North Korean regime. And they don't want that. China doesn't want that. So they're not going to do it. But they are going to make plenty of
saber rattling and
provocation,
right,
noise. It's the only way that they can get attention.
Now, South Korea, I mean, for all of the regime of terror and just craziness that North Korea is, I mean, they are subsidized essentially by South Korea for humanitarian things and food and all that, right? Yeah. I mean, it's what, thousands of tons of rice
every year
sent up there. And probably, not to get into another political hot button, but probably not too dissimilar to how Israel subsidizes the Palestinians building schools and different, but building schools and the concrete and everything, and yet still there's always the attacks, right?
Yep. But the reason for that is the overwhelming majority of North Korean people are not bad people.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know,
they didn't ask for what they have.
Exactly. So if South Korea doesn't send the food, the North Korean regime doesn't care if the people starve to death.
Right.
So,
now the history, I was just talking to my mom about the history of Yongsan Baptist Church, of course, was essentially the Lord led a man named Mike Hall. What was it? 30, how many years ago now? 30,
it was 1988.
1988, and she was actually saying that it kind of started Wednesday evening Bible study there on, let's see, I think it was on the military base, if I recall correctly, started.
I think so, not on Yongsan, but I think actually at K-16.
Yes, yeah.
In Songnam.
Yep. And then the base hospital chapel, I think, started Sunday mornings, is what she said. And then Itaewon, they got a building there. And now explain to us, because I didn't have time to go into this with my mom, but the reason, so the military base had a massive drawdown for Seoul, just a much smaller military presence.
Right.
The church essentially was a military work at the time, still at Seoulning and things for Korean folks. But
so in 1988, when Yongsan Baptist Church started, there were 12,000 troops stationed at Yongsan Army Garrison. Then, of course, all the families and DOD people and others besides that, it might have been well over 20,000 people there. But they, when the decision was made to turn that property over to the Seoul city government and move the troops all to the south to Camp Humphreys in Pyeongtaek. And so that began happening in 2013 is when they began phasing the troops out of there, and pretty much it finished up by 2019. And so now part of Yongsan Army Garrison has already been turned over to the Korean. When the new president here was elected, he refused to go into the Blue House, the Korean version of the White House, because they know that every single room in that place is bugged. And they would have meetings there, and before the news was even released to the South Korean news media, the North Korean news media was already responding to it.
Wow.
So he refused to live there, and he moved into right where the 121 General Hospital used to be. That's where the Korean president lives now.
Okay.
And so that whole quarter of Yongsan Army Garrison is now the presidential residence.
Wow. And so because of that move by the military, the church became much more international work.
Yes.
Probably 60 or 70% Korean folks now.
Yep.
Then a lot of international. There are people from 3 or 4 different continents there today.
Yes.
And so I'm excited, looking forward to preaching with a translator and all of that. That'll be great this morning. But the opportunity to reach these folks, you've been now for 10 years or thereabouts, and it's just amazing to see the Lord continuing to allow His work to go forward, even with a different emphasis, a different kind of group of people here in these days too.
Yes, we've seen a lot of folks saved, both right in, who have come to church through the visitation program, and even through our live streaming and the internet broadcast of our services. We've had folks earlier this year, a Filipino guy, just 25 years old, arrived at our church on Sunday morning, said, "Hi, Pastor, my name is Michael. I've been watching your church services for about 6 months, and I trusted Christ as my Savior. And he said, and I heard you talk about baptism, and I want to know if you think I should be baptized.
Wow.
And so we also, the same way, a young Vietnamese girl who came to Korea for university in Daegu started watching our services to learn to speak English better. and she got saved.
Wow.
And now she's a faithful member in our church.
Praise the Lord.
Working on her master's degree.
Wow.
And in another year, she'll go back to Vietnam.
Huh. So still, and I say this with a positive ending, still a little bit of a transient, on the international side, still a little transient in that people come and go.
Yes.
But it also means that you're investing in people and sending them often back to their home country or back to, and now much like a military church where you have people that, yeah, they're only with you for 2 years, but you get to pour into those people, invest in them, and then they go on and do great things. Speaking of, Chris and Ruth McCurry, some of the very first people at the church, there with Mike Hall, and the direction and whole paradigm of their life was changed as a result of Yongsan Baptist Church. And now here 30 plus years later, Mike McCurry is in full-time ministry. Caleb is on staff at Bible College. Ethan is full-time staff at North Valley Baptist Church in California. And to see what God's doing, and that's one family, family. And not to mention what Chris and Ruth McCurry have done for so many churches in the interim.
During my tenure, we reached a family from South Africa. He was counselor first secretary in the South African embassy, and the Lord changed their lives. And when they left here 3 years later, they went back to Pretoria, South Africa, which didn't have a Baptist church of any kind.
And like 3 million people, right?
3.5 million people, and they were able to meet different American missionaries, and one couple who was working in Port Elizabeth in the South finished up work, and the Lord laid on their heart to go to Pretoria and start with the Mandalas, the Independent Baptist Church of Pretoria.
Wow.
And so, I've never been to Pretoria, but the Lord's allowed us to have some impact even in that place. So.
Absolutely. So we are now on the 3rd floor of this building here in Seoul, and about to walk into you've been in this location for about 2 years, 3 years now, and they were able to secure this location right before COVID shut everything down and things like that. And then, so on the commercial side, does Key Money work pretty similarly?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Now, are you able to hold on to properties longer than 4 years on the commercial side?
Usually.
Okay.
Usually. So, but if there's in the case of this, the problem might be that the man who owns this property, this is our fellowship hall, along with a nursery there and classroom. He is essentially bankrupt right now.
Oh, yes.
And our neighbors, who are a cult, they believe that God is a mother, not a father. They have deep pockets, and they plan on offering him quite a bit more
to secure this one,
just to get us out.
Gotcha. Well, one of the interesting things about how Key Money works, you were explaining to me yesterday that basically you have to keep your ear to the ground and be very wise about, not because you can get to the end of a lease and the landlord doesn't have your Key Money.
Right.
And so basically you have to figure out, okay, at some point you have to make the decision to stop paying your rent so that you can recoup your Key Money.
Yes.
And this is the auditorium here.
It's our auditorium.
About 98 seats or so
98
possible.
Chairs. So we can set out more if we need to.
Well, thank you for following along on this little trek through, wasn't quite through the snow, but trek through Seoul, Korea. Hope you've enjoyed the, let's see if I can get this GoPro off. I got a lot of winter stuff on here. There we go. Got my, I was saying last week, you know, the wedding tradition, something borrowed, something blue. Yeah. I was wearing something borrowed and something blue, and the tie is probably going to be blue today to match the only dress shirt I have with me and blue pants and all that. But anyway, Pastor Rob, and last name is Utman. Utman. And I've been here for 10 plus years in Seoul and even longer in Korea.
24 years.
24 years. And so appreciate so much you follow along, and you'll see probably some images and a video of the day's events here at church in South Korea. Thanks. This is my first time physically being here. I have a personal heritage here at Yongsan Baptist Church.
예, 제가 이곳을 이제 처음 이렇게 직접 방문했지만 저는 이제 용산 침례교회 개인적 영적 유산 그걸 제가 가지고 있습니다.
And because of this church and its founding pastor, my father came to Christ actually on January 8th, 1989.
예. 89. 그래서 우리 이 교회 처음에 세우셨던 목사님이 우리 이 선교사 마이카 형제님 아버님을 1989년에 인도하셨습니다. 믿음으로.
Hey friend, I am back on U.S. soil here in Minnesota. Lord willing, I'll be getting on a flight to Chicago here Monday evening, and we'll be back home with my girls very soon. A wonderful time. Visiting with some missionaries, got to preach in South Korea, got to do some touristy type stuff off the beaten track, got to see a beautiful waterfall all frozen over. I got to visit a Buddhist temple and got to share tea with a Buddhist monk, and I got to watch him be witnessed to by one of the Korean missionaries. Just a phenomenal time with the church folks over there. God's work works everywhere. I have enough footage for at least one, if not two more videos from Thailand and Myanmar, and Lord willing, we'll get those done in the near future. But for right now, I'm very excited to be home. Pray that I conquer the jet lag, and pray that my bag, which is supposed to be in O'Hare Airport by the time I get there, pray that's actually there. Haven't seen it since December 7th or thereabouts. So thank you so much for following along. Looking forward to bringing you with me on the next one. God bless.